fear of not being enough is a deeply rooted belief that can shape how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. It often stems from early life experiences, moments when love or acceptance seemed conditional based on achievement or perfection. This belief can also form through repeated failures or criticism, reinforcing the idea that no matter what is done, it will never be sufficient. These experiences leave an emotional imprint, and over time, the mind begins to create patterns that validate this fear. Without addressing the origin of this belief, it continues to influence decisions, relationships, and self-worth. To shift this fear, it is essential to identify its root. This means going beyond surface-level thoughts and asking deeper questions. What moments in life first triggered the feeling of not being enough? Was it a critical parent, a painful rejection, or a comparison to others? By tracing the emotional blueprint, it becomes possible to see that the fear is not an inherent truth, but rather a story the mind has been repeating. Most people live in reaction to these old stories without realizing they have the power to change them. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. Once the root is exposed, it loses some of its grip, and the mind can begin to question whether that belief still serves a meaningful purpose. Another key element in identifying the root of this fear is recognizing that everyone has experienced moments of feeling inadequate. It is part of the human condition. However, staying trapped in those feelings is a choice. When a person accepts that these beliefs were formed by past interpretations, not absolute truths, it opens the door to freedom. The mind often exaggerates past pain, convincing people that these patterns are permanent. But the truth is, once these beliefs are brought to light, they can be disrupted and replaced. Instead of being trapped by an old narrative, there is an opportunity to create a new meaning. It is also important to notice how the fear of not being enough manifests in daily life. It may show up as perfectionism, procrastination, or less need for external validation. Some people overachieve, hoping that success will fill the void, while others withdraw, believing that no effort will ever be good enough. Identifying these patterns is crucial because they reveal how the fear is being reinforced. When these behaviors are observed without judgment, it becomes easier to disrupt them. There is power in understanding that the mind is constantly shaping reality through the meanings it assigns. By consciously choosing new meanings, the grip of old fears weakens. The process of identifying the root is not about blame or dwelling on the past. It is about reclaiming power. When the source of the fear is understood, it can no longer operate unnoticed. With awareness comes the ability to choose a different path. No longer does life need to be dictated by an outdated belief of not being enough. Instead, there is the freedom to redefine identity based on growth, contribution, and self-compassion. This shift begins by being willing to confront the root and recognizing that true worth is not something to be earned, it is something that already exists within. The story a person tells themselves shapes every aspect of their life. It influences their identity, their behavior, and ultimately their destiny. When someone constantly repeats the narrative that they are not enough, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This internal dialogue colors how they interpret experiences and how they show up in the world. Every thought reinforces this belief, creating a cycle where actions align with the idea of being inadequate. If the story is not questioned or rewritten, it continues to dominate thinking patterns and limits what is possible. However, the truth is that this narrative is not fixed. It is a construct of the mind and can be changed at any moment. By reframing the story, a person can redefine their sense of worth and break free from the limitations imposed by old beliefs. Changing the narrative begins with recognizing that the current story is just one perspective, not an absolute truth. The mind tends to collect evidence that supports existing beliefs while filtering out anything that contradicts them. For example, if someone believes they are not good enough, they will focus on every mistake or perceived flaw while dismissing their strengths and accomplishments. This selective perception strengthens the negative story. The key to breaking this cycle is to consciously disrupt these patterns by challenging the old narrative. Instead of accepting thoughts like, "I am not enough," it is essential to ask, "Is this really true? And what else could this mean?" These questions open the door to new interpretations and allow space for a more empowering perspective to emerge. One powerful way to reframe the story is to shift focus from what is lacking to what is already present. Most people underestimate their growth, resilience, and unique qualities. By intentionally acknowledging past successes and the lessons learned from challenges, it becomes easier to see that worth is not defined by external achievements or the approval of others. The truth is, no single event or failure can define a person's value. When the narrative changes from "I am not enough" to "I am constantly growing and evolving," a profound shift takes place. This new story fosters a sense of empowerment, possibility, and self-compassion. It allows mistakes to be seen as opportunities for learning rather than evidence of inadequacy. Another important aspect of rewriting the narrative is choosing a new identity to embody. People often remain stuck because they define themselves by their past rather than who they want to become. By deciding to adopt a new identity, someone who is capable, worthy, and resilient, it becomes possible to align thoughts and actions with this vision. The mind responds to the identity it is given, and consistent reinforcement of this new narrative gradually replaces the old one. This is not about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing a perspective that supports growth rather than one that keeps reinforcing fear and limitation. The stories people tell themselves either empower them or hold them back. By taking control of this narrative and choosing one that reflects their true potential, they break free from the prison of self-doubt. Reframing the story is a conscious and continuous process. It requires awareness, intention, and a willingness to challenge old beliefs. But once the story changes, everything else follows. A new narrative creates new possibilities, and with that, the fear of not being enough begins to lose its power. Fear often grows when focus is placed on things outside of personal control. This fear of not being enough is no exception. It is amplified when attention is directed toward external circumstances, how others perceive you, situations that cannot be changed, or outcomes that are uncertain. When energy is spent worrying about these things, it drains personal power and increases feelings of helplessness. The truth is, there are countless things in life that cannot be controlled. People cannot control the past, the opinions of others, or every outcome. However, what can always be controlled is the way thoughts are directed, the actions taken, and the meaning assigned to events. Shifting focus to what is within control is the key to weakening the fear and regaining a sense of personal power. One of the most effective ways to take back control is to shift attention to immediate actions. Fear thrives on uncertainty and the unknown. When a person feels out of control, they often imagine worst-case scenarios, which heightens anxiety and reinforces the belief that they are not enough. By focusing on small, tangible actions, the mind is redirected from worrying about what cannot be changed to making progress where it is possible. Even small steps, whether it is improving a skill, making a decision, or changing a daily habit, build a sense of confidence and create momentum. Action is the antidote to fear. When focus is on what can be done right now, fear loses its ability to paralyze. Another way to shift focus is to become aware of how much mental energy is wasted on things outside of control. People often invest time worrying about how others see them, comparing themselves to unrealistic standards, or replaying past mistakes. These mental patterns reinforce feelings of inadequacy. The key is to interrupt these patterns by asking, something I can control? If the answer is no, it is a waste of energy. If the answer is yes, attention can shift toward taking action. This simple question brings clarity and helps to redirect focus to what truly matters. By training the mind to focus on what is within reach, there is a greater sense of certainty and peace. A powerful mindset shift occurs when responsibility is fully embraced. It is easy to blame external circumstances for feelings of inadequacy, but lasting change comes from recognizing that personal power lies in response and choices. No one can control everything, but everyone can control their attitude, decisions, and effort. This shift from external focus to internal responsibility changes the dynamic completely. Instead of feeling powerless, there is a realization that no matter what happens, there is always a choice in how to respond. This sense of ownership diminishes fear because it reinforces the truth that personal worth is not determined by external validation. It is a decision made from within. When focus is consistently placed on what is within control, there is a profound shift in how challenges are approached. Problems become opportunities for growth rather than evidence of inadequacy. The mind becomes more resilient because it is no longer fixated on things outside of influence. The fear of not being enough loses its grip when attention is directed toward what can be changed and the actions that can be taken. This simple but powerful shift in focus is what allows a person to reclaim their power and move forward with certainty and confidence. Emotions are directly connected to physical movement. The way a person moves, breathes, and holds their body influences how they feel in any given moment. When someone is trapped in the fear of not being enough, their physical state often reflects that fear. Shoulders may slump, breathing becomes shallow, and there's a noticeable lack of energy. This physical posture reinforces negative emotional states, making it harder to break free from feelings of inadequacy. The connection between the body and mind is powerful, and by changing physical movement, it is possible to shift emotional patterns instantly. When the body is energized and strong, it becomes difficult to stay stuck in a fearful mindset. This simple but profound principle shows that transforming fear begins with transforming physical state. The mind and body are in constant communication. Negative thoughts trigger physical reactions, but the reverse is also true. Physical changes can disrupt negative mental patterns. When a person is feeling powerless, their body reflects that emotion through weak, closed-off postures. However, adopting a powerful posture, standing tall, breathing deeply, moving with energy sends a new message to the brain. This physical shift can interrupt patterns of fear and self-doubt. It is not about pretending to feel confident. It is about using the body to generate that confidence. The brain responds to physical cues, and when the body is placed in a strong and empowered position, the mind quickly follows. This means that even when fear feels overwhelming, the act of changing physical state can provide immediate relief. Breathing is another crucial element of changing emotional states. Shallow, rapid breathing is associated with stress and fear, while deep, controlled breathing signals calmness and confidence. When caught in feelings of not being enough, the breath often becomes restricted, reinforcing the sense of being stuck. By consciously shifting to deep, rhythmic breathing, the nervous system is calmed and mental clarity is restored. This simple practice is a powerful tool for regaining control over emotional states. It allows space to disrupt fear-based thoughts and replace them with more empowering beliefs. Something as basic as changing the way the body breathes can completely transform the way situations are experienced. Movement itself is another way to break free from the grip of fear. Physical motion creates emotional motion. When fear takes hold, there is often a tendency to freeze, to stop moving, and retreat inward. This lack of movement intensifies the feeling of being trapped. The solution is to engage the body in powerful, purposeful motion. Whether it is exercising, walking briskly, or even jumping up and down, movement generates energy and shifts emotional states. This approach is based on the understanding that emotions are not just mental experiences, they are physical. By using movement to generate positive energy, the emotional hold of fear weakens. It becomes easier to adopt new thoughts and behaviors when the body is in an active and empowered state. As the fastest way to change how someone feels is to change how they move. When fear arises, it is a signal to take action physically and mentally. Changing posture, adjusting breathing, and moving with purpose are all simple yet powerful ways to shift emotional patterns. Fear cannot hold its grip when the body is in a strong and energized state. This approach is not about ignoring or suppressing fear. It is about interrupting its power and choosing a new response. By mastering physical state, it becomes possible to master emotional responses and replace the fear of not being enough with a sense of strength and certainty. The fear of not being enough is often rooted in a mindset of scarcity, the belief that there is never enough time, love, success, or resources. This scarcity thinking convinces people that their value is limited and that they must constantly prove themselves to be worthy. It creates a sense of competition and comparison where other success feels like a threat and personal achievements never seem to be enough. This mental framework traps people in the cycle of fear and inadequacy because no matter how much they do, it never feels like there is enough to satisfy the need for validation. However, this belief is an illusion created by the mind. By shifting to a mindset of abundance, it becomes possible to see that there is already enough and that true worth is not something to be earned, it is something that already exists within. An abundance mindset starts with recognizing and appreciating what is already present. Instead of focusing on what is missing, attention is placed on what is available and what is possible. This shift in focus changes how the world is experienced. When a person is stuck in scarcity, their mind is preoccupied with what they lack, and this focus amplifies feelings of inadequacy. On the other hand, when they focus on what they already have, skills, experiences, relationships, and opportunities, they begin to realize that their life is richer than they previously believed. Gratitude is a powerful tool in this process. By regularly acknowledging and appreciating even the smallest things, the mind is trained to see abundance rather than lack. Another essential aspect of adopting an abundance mindset is understanding that there is always more available, more opportunities, more love, more growth, and more possibilities. Fear of not being enough is often tied to the belief that resources are limited and that if one person wins, another must lose. This is a false and limiting belief. In reality, there is no shortage of potential or success. When people shift their focus to collaboration instead of competition, they realize that there is room for everyone to thrive. This perspective fosters generosity and openness rather than fear and defensiveness. It allows for the belief that there is always enough and that personal worth is not diminished by others' achievements. Changing to an abundance mindset also requires letting go of external comparisons. Scarcity thinking thrives on measuring worth against others, which only fuels feelings of not being enough. An abundance mindset, however, is rooted in the understanding that everyone's path is unique. Instead of comparing achievements or appearances, the focus shifts to personal growth and progress. This mental shift empowers people to celebrate their own journey and to see others' success as evidence of what is possible for themselves. It removes the pressure to meet unrealistic standards and allows room for authenticity and self-acceptance. Living with an abundance mindset means trusting that everything needed is already available or within reach. It is a commitment to seeing possibilities rather than limitations. This mindset does not ignore challenges but approaches them with the belief that solutions exist and that setbacks are temporary. When someone believes that there is always more to experience and create, fear loses its power. The fear of not being enough is replaced by the confidence that there is always enough and that each person by their very existence is already worthy. This mental shift opens the door to greater freedom, peace, and the ability to contribute positively to the world. Raising personal standards is a powerful way to shift the fear of not being enough. Standards shape every aspect of life. They define what is acceptable and what is not. Many people experience the fear of not being enough because they have unconsciously accepted low standards for their thoughts, actions, and relationships. When standards are low, it becomes easy to tolerate negative self-talk, unhealthy habits, and situations that reinforce feelings of inadequacy. However, when standards are raised, everything begins to change. A higher standard demands better choices, stronger boundaries, and a commitment to personal growth. This shift in expectations helps break the cycle of fear by creating a new sense of identity rooted in worthiness and self-respect. Raising standards starts with making a clear decision about what will no longer be tolerated. This requires honest self-reflection and the willingness to identify areas where standards have been compromised. Whether it is the way others are allowed to treat you, how you treat yourself, or the effort you give to your goals, every part of life reflects the standards you hold. If the standard is to accept feeling unworthy or powerless, life will continue to reflect those feelings. But the moment a firm decision is made to expect more from yourself, there is a shift in power. That decision becomes a guiding force, shaping actions and influencing how you respond to challenges. And one of the most important areas to raise standards is in self-talk. The way you speak to yourself shapes your identity and emotions. When standards are low, it is easy to fall into patterns of criticism, doubt, and negative assumptions. This kind of self-talk feeds the fear of not being enough and keeps it alive. Raising your standard means refusing to tolerate disempowering thoughts. It means replacing self-criticism with words of encouragement and choosing to see mistakes as opportunities to grow rather than proof of inadequacy. By holding yourself to a higher standard in how you speak to yourself, you begin to reshape your internal reality, making it harder for fear to take hold. Raising standards also applies to the actions you take. Fear often thrives when there is inconsistency between what you say you want and what you actually do. When actions do not align with values or goals, it reinforces feelings of not being enough. By raising your standards for your behavior, you create a sense of integrity and self-trust. This means committing to follow through on your promises, showing up fully, and refusing to settle for less than your best effort. Small daily actions, when held to a higher standard, build confidence and reinforce the belief that you are capable and deserving. Relationships are another crucial area where standards must be raised. The people you surround yourself with either reinforce feelings of worth or undermine them. Accepting relationships where you are disrespected, undervalued, or taken for granted fuels the belief that you are not enough. Raising your standards means choosing to engage with people who uplift and support you while setting firm boundaries with those who do not. This decision communicates to yourself and others that you are worthy of respect, kindness, and genuine connection. Ultimately, raising your standards is about deciding who you are and what you will accept from life. It is a declaration that you deserve better and will no longer settle for less. This shift in mindset breaks the pattern of fear by creating new rules for how you think, act, and engage with the world. With every step taken to uphold higher standards, the belief that you are enough grows stronger. It is not about being perfect. It is about consistently choosing to live in alignment with your highest values and refusing to accept anything less. She sat watching the world go by. Something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body.